Alright, so this video is my review on an upgrade part for the G&G Levar. The upgrade part that I am reviewing today is the adjustable nozzle from Koji, which is a Japanese brand, or I think Koji's the person. I don't know exactly what the brand is. Maybe it's Koji. Maybe there's no brand yet. I don't know. There's only one website you can order this from, and it ships directly from Japan. I actually already have it in the gun. I've already done a bunch of testing and using it, just so I could give you guys a more informed review on sort of like how it's working and like what it's like basically. I initially was going to do like an install video and like a review like right after install, but I decided instead I was going to actually install it and then use it a while before I make the video. I will still disassemble it, show you how it is, like for the individual parts, and then reassemble it. So this will also be a guide for installing it as well. And long story short, this nozzle is a good nozzle. It does work. Now, the main deal with this nozzle is it's actually longer than the normal nozzles. So both the G&G and the Waldo nozzles are the same like exact length. The Koji nozzle is 2 millimeters longer, and it has a little angle on the like the tip of it, which I'll show you in a little bit. And online, a lot of people were either like assuming or saying that the extra length causes some issues. So some people said that it would make it incompatible with short stroke kits. Some people were saying that it would make it so it has a difficult time feeding the actual BB. And then some people just also said that it has no major difference. Now, I'm not a sniper, so I don't really have any experience with the long range stuff. One of the claims to fame with this nozzle is that it should be better for like longer range shooting, which I don't really do. I just want a good nozzle that's nice and accurate enough for what I do, which is mostly indoors. I do play outdoors sometimes, but I'm not like a super sniper. Like I'm just kind of blasting people when I play outdoors. But I am happy to say that this nozzle is perfectly compatible with at least the short stroke kit that I have. I have the Bristol-based Airsoft short stroke kit, and even with how bad it is, this nozzle does function perfectly fine with the Bristol-based Airsoft short stroke kit. And it also has no issue actually feeding the BBs into the chamber. Even if I just have the gun upside down and I try to like individually load them and rack them in with just gravity being the thing that pushes the BB down, not the whole force of the spring on the magazine, it loads flawlessly. It doesn't have any hard time with loading or anything like that. I don't have much else to say. That's kind of the long story short. It is still adjustable, so you can adjust the like how much flow the nozzle has. I have mine set to max flow because I'm using HPA, so I just decrease the pressure on my HPA regulator to lower or increase the velocity. But for those of you using green gas or stuff like that, it'll be nice because you can tune it to be the exact velocity you want. One other thing before I get into this, there's two ways to buy this. You can purchase this as the nozzle by itself, or you can purchase it as a nozzle with tappet plate. You 100% need to buy their tappet plate, and you can't, as far as I'm aware, you cannot buy it separately, which is kind of annoying. You can only get the tappet plate if you also buy the nozzle. The nozzle is not compatible with other tappet plates, so you either need to buy the specific Koji tappet plate or 3D print your own custom one. All right, I am going to pop the upper receiver off so we can take a look at the nozzle a little bit. The upper has been removed, and you can see it's very obviously different. It's a silver color. I do believe that it is still aluminum. It feels like aluminum. But if you look closely at it, you'll probably see that it's got a little bit of a like an angle. It's not like it has a little chisel taken out of it. I don't know if it'll show on camera very easy. It's not like a perfectly flat front end like the normal nozzles are. So the normal nozzles are kind of flat on the front. It's a perfect circle. This one is not. It is not that. And hopefully you can sort of tell how it's a little bit weird and different. I believe the reason why they have this little chunk taken out of it is to help with loading the BBs. Maybe if that chunk wasn't taken out of it, the BBs would have a hard time feeding, but I don't really know for sure personally. And it sort of seems like basically most of the 2 millimeters of extra length just kind of go beyond the bottom of where that chisel is. That's about 2 millimeters, I think, is what it feels like to me, or close to. And to note, if you watched my first and second video on the Waldo nozzle, this one does have a little bit of wiggle. I don't know if you can see that I can sort of wiggle a little bit, but it's not like floppy. It's not insane like the Waldo nozzles are. The Waldo nozzles are quite terrible. This one is pretty sturdy. There is a little bit of wiggle. It's not as perfect as the stock G&G one is, but it's not terrible either. To disassemble this, I actually kind of take the whole gun apart. You can technically like remove the nozzle just by doing the bolt and the lever, but there's like it's sort of connected easy, so or connected with the O-ring. So I'm just gonna disassemble the whole thing, because if you install this, you're gonna have to disassemble the whole thing to put the tappet plate in, because you cannot use the stock tappet plate on this. So we gotta punch out these two pins at the bottom first, this one and this one. If your gun is green gas, not HPA, you need to purge it first, which you can do just by holding the hammer down, and that'll spray all the green gas out. Or you could just shoot it till it's empty. That's the best way, is to shoot it till it's empty, but if you don't want to do that, you can just hold the hammer down. And these two pins are different lengths, so you need to keep track of which one's which. You don't want to get them mixed up. Let's see. Oh, that pin is not, okay, there it goes. Right. And now the whole gas reservoir basically comes off. You need a pretty long driver to get inside of it. So I have an extension here. Oh my gosh, get in the hole. Okay, grip is removed. Right. Now we can remove the whole rest of the system here. Okay, and as you can see, I'm using the injection molded Bristol-based Airsoft short stroke kit. I have both the short stroke and the over travel on here, and you know, it's not great, but they are working. And the bolt comes out. All right, now we're on to the home stretch. So now you can see sort of the nozzle. So I could, at like this point, I could remove the nozzle, but I wouldn't be able to get to the tappet plate. So I'm just going to disassemble everything before removing the nozzle. There is a little tiny ball bearing under this, so you need to be careful you don't lose it. And this little triangle piece in here is just going to float around, and it's kind of annoying, but it's not that big. I'll show you how to put it back together, but just keep track of that so you don't lose it, because I think at this point it might be able to fall out at this point. It's possible. and then these two sides. Okay, and now this will all sort of rock out of here. So obviously on one side of the gearbox, for lack of a better term, is going to be all the screws. There is one screw on the opposite side, which is this black one here. Do not remove that one. There's no reason to. And as you can see, there's no other screws. So only remove screws from the side that has a bunch of them, and you remove all of them, but I'm going to show you the order that I like to do it. And I would probably recommend you do it. So I just start from the front and I move backwards because this hammer here is under spring tension, and if you remove like this one first and then slowly work your way that way, it could fly across the room and you might lose some parts because there are some parts that are kind of loose. And all the silver screws are exactly the same, so you don't need to worry about the order or like getting them mixed up. So I've done all the silver ones except for the last one, which is where the hammer is. I'm going to do the black one now. And then now I'm going to do the silver one, and then just, you probably want to keep your hand on the hammer just in case so it doesn't fly across the room. Okay. Now you can remove everything. So the Tappet plate is on this side, so you need to sort of help it guide itself out of here if the nozzle is still connected, which in my case it is. And that's like that. And then the rest of this, it sort of floats in here. It does kind of line up with like little pegs. So when you put it back together, make sure it's all lined up properly. And the hammer, this part is just kind of loose on the, like that there. So that's how it's supposed to look. If you get it mixed up, that's how that all goes together. And then the safety, we'll just let it kind of come out because it will probably want to. It's this little like key-shaped piece that is hiding back here. It slips in next to the hammer basically. And now we don't need to touch this, but I did remove those parts just so that way they don't get lost or anything like that. Now we got the nozzle with the Tappet plate, and as you can see, the nozzle is sort of attached to the Tappet plate, and that is via an O-ring. As you can see, the O-ring sort of hooks on back here to a bottom hook on the Tappet plate, and it wraps around the nozzle, and the nozzle sort of fits perfectly in place with the little gap on the Tappet plate that's included. Now this Tappet plate is a 3D printed Tappet plate, which is kind of annoying. I do not like using 3D printed parts, but in this case, there's not another option that works. I was planning on using the Bristol-based Airsoft aluminum Tappet plate, but when I was testing it, it obviously didn't work, so I wasn't able to do that. But we're going to unscrew this screw here so we can remove the Tappet plate. Now the Tappet plate's gone, and again you can see how it's sort of connected to the front via an O-ring. It's not going to move anywhere basically. And we can remove this O-ring. And mine came with 2 of these, so I guess I got one spare. They seem to be identical. There seems to be no difference. But I wish I could buy individual like extras of this, so that way because if I break 2, I'm done. I probably will have to contact them via email or something to see if I can buy just a Tappet plate, because I don't want to buy a whole nozzle really personally. All right. So first off, the nozzle we'll talk about a little bit. So I don't know if you can see now how the front end is not perfectly flat. It has a sort of a bevel on there, so it's quite a bit different than the Waldo nozzle or the stock G&G nozzle. And I'm going to measure this, hopefully, unless my batteries died. I have a cheap little calipers here. So this is the Waldo nozzle, which is at 49.14, which I believe is essentially the same as the stock one. 49.57, so the stock one's a tiny bit longer. But we'll go ahead and zero this, and we'll see how much longer this is. Yeah, like 1.96, so yeah, basically 2 millimeters. Yeah, 1.96 is the reading that I'm getting on there for the extra length of the nozzle. So obviously, yes, 2 millimeters longer than stock. All right, sorry, I had to take a break there, but I think I was talking about the ports where the air flows into the nozzle from. So on the G&G ones, there's a bunch of these little holes drilled throughout the whole nozzle, which means this nozzle, it doesn't matter like where it's rotated at. Like it can be in there at any direction inside the gun, and it will still fire. Although the velocity can fluctuate a little bit depending on where those holes are lined up at. With the Koji and the Waldo nozzle, the size of the port is about the same. It's really dang close. But basically what this does is this nozzle needs to be aligned properly, so it's not going to freely rotate anymore. But basically the air is always going to have this really massive hole that it can flow straight through and into the nozzle and obviously shoot the BB. So this nozzle has that one large port on here, and it definitely does need to be directioned. Like it has a specific way it needs to sit because the front has this bevel as well, as you can see here. I will talk about the machining quality. So the G&G and the Waldo nozzle are pretty nicely machined. The Waldo nozzle is just a bad design, but the machining is actually pretty nice on both of them. The Koji nozzle seems a little bit rough. It especially if you look down the center on the inside, it is not super smooth on the inside as far as like the flow for the air. And then on the outside, it's pretty good. There's no major like issues on the outside of it, but you can definitely tell that it's not quite as well machined as the other two are. Now the way that you adjust the airflow, this is not just a copy of the Waldo. It actually is different. I thought it was going to be a copy of the Waldo until I got it in person, and then it was definitely not a copy of the Waldo. All right, so you need two basically hex keys. So one of them can be anything because it's just right here on the back, but the other one needs to be very long and skinny because it has to go through the nozzle. So you have to put one end through, and this is just barely long enough for it to work. And then this side over here, and basically if you unscrew one of them like all the way, so you'd probably want to unscrew the back one all the way, and then you would slowly adjust the front one until it's exactly where you want it to be. Once the front one is where you want it to be, because the front one is what controls the flow, once the front one is where you want to be, then you need to put this screwdriver through the middle, grab onto it, because it is two separate set screws. You grab onto the middle, and then you can tighten the back. You probably want to make sure there's a little bit of this front screw sticking out, so you can tighten it down a tiny bit. So you get it to where it wants to grab, and then you twist both of them until it obviously will go, and that will lock them in place, and they probably will not move at all. They'll probably be for sure stuck together where they are. So this nozzle probably will not need to Loctite or use Teflon tape, just because of those two screws pushing against each other, kind of clamping each other on there, so they're tight. The front O-ring's tight. The rear O-ring is a little bit loose. They do include a bunch of different O-rings in the packaging, but just because I didn't have any issues with this nozzle not working, I didn't bother with replacing this back O-ring. So it's fine. I don't need like the little bit of velocity or air that I lose by having this O-ring not be perfect. It's not a big deal to me because I don't snipe. I use this like for fun, like as CQB or whatever. And before we talk just about the tappet plate, I will talk about the nozzle connecting to the tappet plate. So as you saw, this nozzle, it has a little tiny itty bitty like ears there, which it goes onto perfectly. So the circle here, the cutout, is going to match up with the grub screw inside the nozzle, is what it matches up with. So it's going to sit sort of flush basically in there, and then it will be stuck together using the O-ring. If I can get it on there. Yeah, so it'll stick together, and that will keep it from rotating. It's not going to rotate at all when it's inside of this. Now, some issues arise when you try to use this with other tappet plates that are not the Koji tappet plate. So I have the BBA, Bristol-based airsoft tappet plate here, and I have the G&G stock tappet plate. So G&G stock tappet plate, obviously the wings on here are much larger than the wings on there. So you should be able to very easily see a big difference. Because of how big these wings are, this nozzle can just rotate around, and it's not going to stay at the proper location in here. So if you use the stock one, it's going to rotate. You're going to have to figure out some way to keep it in place if you end up using the stock tappet plate. The Bristol-based airsoft aluminum one is the same exact thing. It's going to freely rotate essentially inside because the wings are basically the same size. I think the Bristol-based airsoft ones are a little bit taller, but besides that, it's like the same diameter of like cutout, and it can rotate in here infinitely, and it's not going to stay lined up. And this nozzle needs to stay lined up. If it's not lined up, it's not going to work properly. Now on the tappet plate, you should be able to see like both the G&G and the Bristol-based airsoft look pretty similar. There's not any major differences. This one has a whole like tumor sticking out the back of it. And this basically, my belief is that it acts as an over travel stop. So when it's inside of the gun, it will contact right here on that post. So that, you can probably see how it contacts and it stops. So this tappet plate, you may not need to use the over travel stop on the lever. You might just be able to get away with this. I still use the over travel piece because it actually is the exact same. They both stop at the exact same point in the nozzle travel. So I just keep both because I might as well have like double protection basically. But that's what that is. And it does fit pretty good. There's a tiny bit of wiggle, but not a large amount like there was with the Bristol-based airsoft one before I put shims. I put shims and it still is wiggly. It's still not great. But this is, it's definitely good enough. It is basically in spec. It's essentially the same as the stock one is as far as how it fits. I don't think there's much else to say about this, about the nozzles and the tappet plates. I will do a video in the future that is going to be a direct comparison between this Koji nozzle, the Waldo nozzle and the highest power G&G nozzle to compare like with like what the lowest velocity that they're able to do, what the max velocity they're able to do, consistency and stuff like that. But for now, we're focused on the Koji nozzle. And I'm going to just basically reassemble this now, because again, there's not really much else to talk about. So we can mount it on here. Let's see. All right, it's all together. Okay. And this just is flat. I didn't have to do any fitment. This just drops in and fits good in my case. You'll see the nozzle is pointing up. It will be pointing up like that until you put it in the whole housing. That's just because the O-ring is behind the pivot point and it's kind of pulling it upwards. And then obviously once you tighten the screw down, you want to make sure that it can still freely move. If it feels sluggish, that's not good. You need to back out that screw or do some fitment, but mine didn't require any fitment or anything like that. I tightened the screw down all the way and it's good. All right, we can put it in here now. Now you do need to make sure that there's little like peg holes on this front part. You need to make sure it's lined up properly. Everything kind of is floating basically, and sometimes it won't like to close. It looks like we got it, so it's good. Now, let's see, sorry. I'm going to put in this front screw very loosely. And then this hammer, it's kind of annoying. It feels like it doesn't fit, to be honest with you, but it does. It does actually fit. Before you put the hammer in, if you want to be easy on yourself, you can put this safety piece in, which it goes in this big hole right here, but obviously you put it from the underside. And you do have to kind of fish it in there. It doesn't really want to be where it's supposed to be, but it will go in. And you have to lay it down flat like so. So I don't know if you can see how it's sitting, how it's sort of flat on the back there. So the little strut is going to go through the hammer, or sorry, the little strut on the hammer is going to go through that slot that's there. It kind of just goes straight in. Like you basically poke through that slot. And then the hammer, you have to fish the hammer in. It oftentimes kind of complains, but it will fit. And what is going to hold the hammer in place is one of these screws. Is going to be basically the axle for the hammer. It's in. Now we just take a look, make sure nothing looks weird, but nothing looks weird, so we should be fine to keep going. And we can put all these screws in whatever order we want to. It doesn't really matter that much anymore. All right, all the screws are in. Once all of them are in, just do another go around to make sure they're all tight as they can go. Now, you need to be very mindful because if you shake this around, the little safety piece is going to fall out. So you need to be very careful. Remember, the way that the screws are, basically the safety is sitting on top of where the screws are, basically, but just in a lower like plane of existence. So if you flip this upside down, it could just completely lose itself. So kind of want to make sure it's always a little bit tilted, so that way that safety piece doesn't get lost. And you have to fish this inside of the receiver. Once it's in, you can very gently turn it upside down. And then we can grab the safety. The little ball bearing needs to go right there on that one. And then the safety just kind of sits on top. And when we screw it in, it should tighten properly. I swear, I lose these bits as fast as I use them. All right, tighten it down. Yep, it did tighten properly. And you can always double check by looking inside, make sure it actually moves the safety piece, but I've never had an issue where it doesn't actually grab on personally. Now we can put that screw in. And this screws on both sides. Okay, so that's basically everything that's annoying to do. I'm going to put this grip on. And I do apologize if I sound weird. I am getting over being sick. All right, that's basically good. We can go ahead and throw this bolt in. You want to push the nozzle back. And then, now because there's a little bit of extra stuff on the tappet plate, it may be a little bit more tricky to get this in, but it will go in. It goes in perfectly fine on mine. Okay, so yeah, we have it in there, and then obviously once it's together, you need to make sure that it actually does retract properly. So we should see it does actually move, which is good. So you know that it actually works. All right, we're gonna put the gas reservoir back on. And then just remember which order the pins were. Dude, I'm always losing my punch. Where did I put it? Dear Lord, oh, there it is. Right. Right, so now it's fully installed, and I'm going to put the upper back on, and I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so I went ahead and I put the upper on just off camera. There's no sense in me struggling trying to do it when it's on camera. Got some BBs in my Dixie cup here, and we can turn it upside down. Hopefully this should be way easier for you to see, although I may put it closer. Okay, so you can obviously see how the bolt is closed right now, and it is, you can trust me. So here I can rack it. Well, I guess that's going to be kind of weird. So yeah, I'm racking it, obviously. Now, I'm going to put a BB in, and then we will see how it doesn't even need the extra force of the magazine to push the BB like past the extra length of the nozzle. Like it'll just go past the extra length of the nozzle, easy peasy. So we can go ahead and rack it, and you should see that it fell down, super easy peasy, and then we can close it, and you'll see that it chambered that BB, easy peasy. So there's no issue with the feeding. There's no issue with the short strokes. So the things that people were saying online about this being a compatibility issue seem to not be a real deal. It seems like it's it works fine. It was designed well. However, it is kind of annoying you had to use their Tappet plate. It would be nice if you could use other ones, but it seems to work fine so far. And I mean, it's not like the other Tappet plates are good, so it's not like you really need to have one that works fine. Like the G&G one is pretty easy for the nozzle to slip off of. It's very easy for it to slip off of. And then the Waldo Dynamics one, the nozzles don't slip off of it because the ears are so much longer, but it doesn't sit good, and it can rotate inside. Like you can see how it looks like it should fit perfect and not be able to rotate, but when it's actually in the gun, this Tappet plate sits way lower than that, and so it can rotate a bunch. In the case of this, the Tappet plate actually sits pretty high, and it prevents the nozzle from rotating, which is good. Makes it better than the only like real competition on the market. And I will, coming up, do a video comparing all three of the high flow nozzles, so G&G 4.0, the Waldo at max, and then the Koji at max. There is another nozzle I saw online, but it seems to be a pretty cheap one. I don't know if I want to buy it or not. And I don't remember if it's high flow or not, or if it's like normal flow, or if it's adjustable. I don't remember. In my comparison video, I am going to compare all three nozzles at max flow to see what the velocity that I can get is. But this nozzle is going to be about the same as the Waldo as far as what the velocity is able to get up to. There probably is a small difference, but I don't think it's going to be very noticeable. And I never run it at max anyways. But I will definitely, in that comparison video, I'll test it at max for you guys. If you have any questions about this nozzle, make sure to leave your questions in the comment section, and I'm welcome to answer them. But this video is really, there's not much to it. It's pretty simple. It kind of just works. It just kind of, like, I guess, disproves the theory on the internet that this nozzle is not going to work. And I didn't do anything crazy to make this function properly. I just kind of put it in there and it worked. I didn't have to modify anything. And I didn't even grease the O-rings on the nozzle, which I may do, but it's been working fine without greasing it. So I'm just gonna leave it as is, because there's no reason in really changing that. But that's all I have. So have a nice day. Adios. If this video was useful for you, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out a lot. Also, there is a link down below to our Discord server, and this is a Discord server with a bunch of YouTubers that are really awesome, as well as a bunch of viewers like yourself, and you are welcome to join. Have a nice day.